Hello, everyone.
Hi,
Hello, viewers. My name is Dola, and I'm here with
Victoria.
and you're welcome to Gospel Funnel TV, where you get the best of all gospel content, reviews, musical reviews, movie reviews, and all sorts of gospel content. And I'm sure that this watching this review today will do you a great
It will
good.
definitely bless you.
Yeah, so today we would be reviewing a movie titled Enoch. Yes, the much anticipated Enoch movie, which finally dropped on
March 2nd.
March the 2nd, which coincidentally was Pastor Adeboye's birthday. The Enoch movie, simply a biography of the life and times of our much revered Pastor E.A. Adeboye. Happy birthday, Daddy. Yes, so the movie is available on my Damilola Mike Bamilole's YouTube channel. Also, you can get it on Solid Rock Foundation TV channel. You can also see it on Pastor Adeboye's
YouTube
channel.
Well.
So the movie was produced by Mount Zion Film and Production in conjunction with Solid Rock Foundation TV. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as we take you through the journey of the movie Enoch, which is roughly 2 hours. Yeah, 2 hours, right?
About 2 hours, yeah.
Yeah. So Enoch, Victoria.
Enoch.
Enoch in the scripture walked with God. I don't think this movie says otherwise, actually.
Yeah, shows how our daddy walked with God. And I love how it picked like every single detail from like when he was young up to like very like now. Did you see the end of the movie? How they actually brought it to now?
Yeah, the soundtrack.
That was very, very wonderful to see. So yeah, we're going to be talking about the movie. We're going to be talking about how it applies, how we think it applies to our lives as Christians. There are like a lot of lessons to learn from the life of our daddy, and to think these are just the parts that we can see. It's definitely a general for our time, and this movie was definitely an investment worth it.
Yeah, it was. It was really worth. So yeah, the movie showed us a boy at Dijari from actually humble
A
family.
very humble family. It was like I think one of my first exposures to beginnings that humble, and like the scripture of don't despise your days of it made so much sense because that was such a little beginning, and we could just see how Enoch, it grew from that little boy that went to primary school to this boy that wanted to go to Girama, and you could see the determination. I think even like spiritual lessons aside, that's like a habit that I think young people should like try to form. The determination. He was starving. He was determined not to eat. He was almost dead on the ground. He had done 3 days dry. Who knows? Maybe it was like a spiritual training. And he had done that already just to go to Girama. Like we are not even there talking about the spiritual aspect of things, and yeah, the humble beginning. I think there's one strong lesson we can learn from that is that no matter how little the beginnings are, your dreams are pretty valid. They are very valid, and they just, I think the universe, God just wants to see that little determination, that effort that shows that you really, really want this. And that was something I think that the Enoch had. So like even if it seemed like things didn't want to work for him, he was going to make things work for him. So that's something I think we can learn.
Yeah, I like the fact that you pointed out his attitude at such humble beginnings. The fact that yes, he wasn't a Christian, he wasn't a believer, but he had the right attitude, he had determination, he had no. I think that was amazing. So much mental strength for a little boy.
Yeah, so much. That was a lot.
So that was Adijari. So let's move on. The movie is divided into 5 parts: part 1, part 2, part 3. So there's like difference in in phases of life.
Yeah, I think they talked about like the humble beginning we just described, and then they talked about his phase in the grammar school.
Yeah, so we can just go there. That's the phase 2. That's the part 2. So we saw a boy.
Oh, a boy
coming from the village.
Humble beginnings
walking to
again.
the Girama school
Without shoes.
Oh my.
I have listened to Daddy Enoch talk about that. But watching it, it was something else. It was another level of I want this.
I really
He
want
was
this.
going to get it, irrespective of what was. He didn't even care. Everybody had shoes, and he didn't have. And then he had the nickname "Natural Shoes." God,
Natural.
people were
Yeah, I think
mean.
that part got me.
People were mean. I don't think people being mean came with social media. People have always been very mean, but he didn't care.
Even his teacher didn't expect much from him.
He didn't care.
He gave an answer, and the teacher said,
That you checked it on that book or something, and no, but he came out, he proved himself, and so that's something I think we should also learn from. Why we say don't despise the days of little beginnings. Your days of little beginnings have to be worth it. They have to be little beginnings with effort, little beginnings with determination, little beginnings with a potential, like little beginnings that actually have potential to help someone. So it was little beginnings, but he had his studies going well for him. He had his character. I mean, for his principal to want to follow him home. I don't know if that's how it was done those days, to like when he lost his dad, and then the principal was willing to give him an IOU form. Like he had to pay his fees after secondary school, by the way. Mind blowing. But I don't think that could have been done for someone who had no potential. So it was little beginnings, but it was definitely little beginnings with the massive mustard tree.
yeah, I think it's even very obvious in the life of Papa Adeboye. Eventually, when he became general overseer, all of those little beginnings,
Yeah.
enabled him to develop capacity
Yeah.
for even this time that he's having, the discipline, determination, yeah, and the fortitude to overcome life challenges. Like you mentioned, his father died. He was the sole sponsor. He was the sole sponsor.
Yeah, he was. And then you know how they say that I can't remember, something takes you up but character keeps you there. So he had everything. He had built everything he needed to stay up there. So
Yeah.
it's not a surprise that the Redeemed Christian Church of God, well, in conjunction with other people who have put in a lot of effort, is the excellent church that it is today.
Yeah.
It's not any surprise at all, given how much work our pastor put into it.
Yeah.
Then we come to the marriage.
Yeah, to the part three, coming to the part three. So I think that seemed more like a very interesting part of the movie. I think everyone would have wanted to know how Daddy Enoch met with Mommy Foluke,
And
the
this
whole
is where we give you the tip.
Bible and
The Bible.
no
Do not give him boxers and singlets anymore. Do not give him chocolates. Give him a Bible. A white Bible.
and a white handkerchief.
And a
I
white
thought that was
handkerchief.
prophetic. What do you think,
I
Victoria?
mean, it was like she had seen it. She knew. Like, even it's weird that she didn't know that she knew, but she knew.
Yeah,
She knew that he
actually,
was going to need
she
that
was
Bible.
doing something very prophetic.
Very, very. And so we see how that a spouse, I know it's been said a number of times, but a spouse really plays such a large part in your walk with God. In your walk with God. Because if she wasn't someone with those kind of characteristics hidden deep within her, when the time came to leave everything, as we will later get there, it would not have been easy. It would not have been easy. And so I like the fact that even though Daddy was not seen to be a committed Christian at the time, he was able to recognize values. He was able to
Yeah.
recognize a woman that had put her priorities right in front of her, and she wasn't bothered about whether he was a playboy or not. She was letting him know upfront that this is the kind of woman I
I think
am.
that was exhibited in the fact that his other, friends were sending loads of other gifts, but the
Yeah.
one that caught his attention was like
Yeah.
the white Bible and the handkerchief.
Okay, and here is where we say it doesn't have to be a white Bible, but I think
Values.
when you gift that person, I think your journeys, if aligned, something will catch his attention. Your gift will catch his attention. Don't worry. Don't bother. You can buy Bible. Anyone will work.
So it looks like the way right now is
Yeah.
the white Bible and the white handkerchief.
And the
Go
white
get yours
handkerchief.
quickly, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And when they buy white Bibles from you, please remember
Accept.
to. No, I'm talking of the vendors. Please remember to give us credit.
Oh yeah,
we gave a lot of popularity to the white Bible and white handkerchief.
Yeah.
Then we come to when it was already a lecture.
Yeah.
I'm
So
going to let you talk.
here we have Daddy Enoch Adeboye, having the world at his feet. Ambition was perfectly aligning.
Yeah.
A lecturer in University of Lagos, student in applied mathematics, PhD.
Yeah, the
Had all
car.
things working together for him, car. But there was a but. A but. There was something missing. He couldn't seem to put the pieces together. There was a puzzle he could not figure out.
Yeah.
And, we noticed how that drove him in search for power, in search for protection.
Yeah, because it was very obvious that the little he had, the devil was willing to touch it and play with it, and that's one of the things that we risk when we don't stay with God. The devil, his children were always falling sick. I think he himself was sick at some point, and so there is that covering that is absent as a believer when you don't stay, when you're not where you're supposed to be. And then the part where he had to drag goats from the market.
A lecturer.
God, my goodness.
A lecturer.
My goodness, of the University of Lagos. And my pastor says something. He says that when the devil asks you for something, asks people for something, they are so willing to go any length for it. And I think it's because they have confidence in what they think will come out of it. Meanwhile, God asks you to pray and read your Bible. It literally calls you into a love relationship, which should not, compared to what the struggles that the devil drags his followers through, should not be much of a struggle. He literally calls you into a friendship, and that's mostly what he asks of you. Of course, there will be greater consecrations to require later, but I mean, someone that is willing to drag goats from the market to the house of a wounded herbalist should be able to read his Bible, should be able to pray. And so when we're faced with a lot of challenges as Christians, I know our first reaction, if it's not to seek solution outside, maybe to post on social media or something like that, I think the first thing should be to talk to God. He literally has the easiest solution. He just wants you to talk. And that's why I'm pretty sure when Moses prayed, he didn't have to close his eyes, he didn't have to attain a position, because God listens everywhere, anytime, in the middle of the night, on the road. And so, yeah, that was just a lesson I think we should learn. That people are always willing to stress when the devil gives instructions. But then the very seemingly little instructions that God has given us as Christians, we find reasons to complain. I can't wake up in the night to pray. My Bible is boring, and then there's a lot.
So we noticed that, all of Papa Adeboye's determination, discipline, and drive was channeled in the wrong direction.
Yeah,
Then,
in the wrong direction.
Yeah, but then mercy came calling. Mercy came calling, and we found, the then Mr. Enoch Adeboye finding his way to a church. This is also. I'm picturing Pastor Adeboye thinking of the man who gave him the suggestion. He went to one of his friends and they were, introducing him to all sorts of personal herbalists, but then the man who made that decision and took up the boldness. Imagine Pastor Adeboye coming up to that man and telling him all of his problems. And the man was bold enough to say, let me take you to somewhere.
Let me take you to a church,
Let me take you to somewhere.
Yeah. And
wow.
I think one of the lessons that you can learn from that is how that I think as Christians, we should be willing to share our solution. I know that sometimes you might feel like I don't want to impose on their religion, I don't want to impose on their school of thought. But I think the major thing we should always remember is I'm offering help.
I'm offering help.
Yeah. I'm not just trying to draw you to become a Christian. I'm not just trying to increase the membership of my church. Do you get? I'm offering help. And I think that makes the work of evangelism easier. One of my spiritual fathers wrote a book, Have Compassion on Them. And it was a book spurring people to evangelism. Right? this is not about you not respecting people's views. This is you having mercy. This is you showing love the best way you can.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think that man did. Like, taking him to the church. He this was a lecturer, a learned person, but he just, I have to take this man to the church. And so even when you don't have the right words to say, if you're sure that you attend a church that preaches the word of God, you should be bold enough to take a friend. Talk to a friend about it. Don't let Jesus be your secret.
Yeah.
Be bold. Because he really is the solution to all the problems that all your friends have. He is the solution to. Like that man. I feel like the man will be so, I don't know if he's still alive,
Yeah.
or he did something. He
What
won
would
one
Pastor
for
Adeboye
God.
think when he thinks of that man?
He won one for God.
Yes,
He
that
won
was
one
one
for God.
actually, and that was one.
One big fish.
One big one.
One big one.
You know.
Yeah.
And he's coming into the church at the Meta then was, you know, I could imagine the look on
He actually sat up
face when he saw
He
this man
knew.
walked in. He must have sensed that, yes,
knowing God.
yes, this was the one.
He knew.
This was the one. Every prophecy that had been spoken about the Redeemed Christian Church of God, this was the one. This was the one. Right now, so to the time, then Mr. Enoch Adeboye walked into the Ebutimeta Church of Redeemed Christian Church of God. I'm trying to picture the expression and the look on the face of Parkinda when he finally saw.
Yeah, and he had to sit up.
Yes, he must have sensed at that particular
Catch you.
point. Yeah, every prophecy that had been spoken by, you know, that had been spoken to the church
Here
at that
comes the
particular point.
fulfillment.
Here comes the fulfillment.
Glory.
Wow, yes. So,
Yes.
I just want us to shed more light on, you know, the happenings, you know, during his stay in the church. This was a man with PhD, had so much education, had so much ambition, and he came into a church where everything he had to do was to respond in service, in sacrifice, in obedience to God's word. In sacrifice. Before we go into Pa Adeboye's response during his time at the church, I want us to shed more light on the approach and attitude of Pa Akindayomi towards the then Mr. Adeboye. You know, seeing a man who came from so much spiritual troubles and battles coming into a church, you know, yet this man had, you know, education, had everything he seemingly wanted, but then no sign of spiritual, you know, growth. Then we saw his approach, his determination to ensure that this individual was discipled.
The intention.
You know, he kept going to his home
and inviting him to
teaching him scriptures at that age. I can imagine the kind of questions, you know, then Mr. Adeboye was asking. We have been asking certain questions, and yet this man was patient. He was willing to ensure that this one is discipled.
All right. So we're talking about Pa Akindayomi's response, his willingness to teach, his willingness to mentor, to disciple our daddy, Enoch.
Yeah.
So brings us to the topic of discipleship. Can you talk about discipleship? Just for a bit.
Yeah, discipleship. So we see through the scriptures that, you know, Jesus the Christ, who was to die, ensured that something was not lacking. That was discipleship. He knew eventually that, you know, after his death, he was going to, you know, leave the ones whom he had come to save in the hands of the likes of Peter, James, and John, and he ensured that every instant that these ones were discipled in the ways of Christ. These ones were discipled in the word of Christ. In our time right now, I think it's high time we pay more emphasis,
more attention,
and
be more
attention on the subject of discipleship. You know, let's be intentional about the ones who come into the fold. So it's not just about bringing them into the fold. While we have evangelists who are bringing them into the fold, let's have pastors, let's have teachers who will keep them grounded in the faith, who would, you know, who would ensure that these ones are taught the basics and the foundations of faith in a way that eventually we'll see them exhibiting the fruit of the Spirit even in their daily living. And we saw that evident in Pastor Adeboye when eventually he he started an amazing journey of obedience.
An amazing journey of obedience. And the one that we must talk about was where Pa Akindayomi came up and said that God said every worker should empty their account.
Yeah.
Brother Dollar. At that point in the movie, I did like this. I literally did that because I'm like, hey, my God. It felt like bullets hitting me because that was a lot. But did you see the excitement with which him and his wife first stood up? Because they thought like the whole church is going to do this, and they're like, bam.
I felt that word was primarily for the Adeboyes.
And I like how they titled that part, A Test of Faith. And I think one of the things that struck me there the most was that Daddy Enoch had learned dependence on God, because there's no other logical reason why both me and my wife would empty our accounts, having 3 children in the house.
Yeah, that stems from the discipleship trainings that I received from Akindayomi.
It's giving take no thoughts for tomorrow. Like, it's giving don't take extra clothes. Like, it's giving lean not on your own understanding, like trust in the Lord. Like, there was no other explanation for that. And then they came to give it cheerfully.
So while a lot of the members and workers would have had so much understanding of of spiritual things,
they're trying to debate it. Is he a literal giving or is he a metaphorical giving? Was God being literal?
The Mr. Adeboye was taught the basics of faith by parking them. He was taught never to lean on his own understanding. I think that was evident at the end of the movie. He was taught obedience. And when the true test came, everything that every training he had received in the place of discipleship eventually came forth.
To drop everything.
And we noticed also a resistance. He was a bit resistant because he kept comparing himself to other people. He kept looking around, expecting that the crowd will come around, but then the battle of the mind began.
And then he started like, hey, is
this logical? So the well-educated one in the midst of a whole lot of people who didn't even have education as much as him could have actually thought it logically to say, how would I give up?
He had learned.
Yeah.
He had learned that there's really nothing that you can give God that can be compared to what he can give you.
Yeah,
there's nothing. Because I know while I thought about it while seeing the movie, like, it just struck me. Like, as much as I felt like I couldn't empty my account, if I gave everything in my account, it's really nothing compared to the things that God has for me. Compared to the things
something struck me about the fact that, Adeboye and Mommy Foluke did this thing in unison. The
partnership. I don't even think they actually really talked about it, because it was after he got home that I found out that she also emptied her account.
The same mind.
You get? There was
the same mind. So
but synchronicity.
The husband didn't have to try to convince his wife. Neither the wife had to, I think that was.
Now let us talk about the prayer and fasting. The 14 days prayer and fasting to not be a pastor.
Where prayer point was like,
sounds like something I can do.
I don't want to be Victoria.
Jesus.
I think the call is right in your front.
Okay, you see, one thing I learned there, and I think I took note of that, was the sovereignty of God. There are times that God requires your input, and there are times he doesn't. Prayer should bring answers. And he prayed. They fasted. It was even prayer of agreement, which if 2 should agree as touching anything. But there are times when God looks over all that, and he will do what he wants to do. When God has a plan to fulfill. Once you are in the right position, you know how they say he doesn't even call the qualified. So maybe that's why Daddy Enoch felt reluctant, like, that pastor work, like, it's for some people. It is not for some people, my dear. It is for you. And it is for you. I don't know, it's for you. It's for everyone. Because there is a position that you are to fill. There is a place, like the master that told his servants, occupy till I come. There is a place that you should fill. And until you are there, things may look like they're not working. And then something I noticed there was God's call. While it may not come with a lot of external fights, it comes with a lot of internal battles, which we saw that the Adeboye fighting to the point of praying and fasting. Because I feel like the battleground of the mind, like Jeremiah wrote, is where you win the hardest battles. Is where you fight the most dangerous battles. Understanding fully well that that man that is fighting those things in his head, his instructions will soon become law for some people. And so, if God is dealing with a man that has not come to a place of total dependence and reliance on Him, even for your own seemingly little decisions, you will ruin people's lives. You would lead people astray. God has to work with a man that has finished fighting the battles inside. And that's where the strongest battles are. That's where the battles of temptation, the battles of consecration, that's where we fight them. It's not even the wars and all that. And so I think the prayers, the follow up of Park in Dayomi, those things, and I dare assume that there were some other inputs that were not really featured in the movie. Some other people who had really invested in Park Enoch to the point that he accepted the call. That is usually the hardest part, accepting the call, because once you finally do, God like leads you.
I think that says a lot about how much work we should be eager to put in when it comes to investing in people.
Yes.
At the end of the movie, you are seeing eyes have not seen, ears have not heard. It's not come to the knowledge of man what God has in store for that particular disciple. It's important that the ones whom He has saved, He has a plan, He has a purpose for them. If we are privileged and we are in a position to invest, in terms of spiritual impartations on these ones, like Parking Dayomi did at the Oklahoma Convention, we ensure that we do not resist. Every teachings, every impartations, all of those things eventually in the life of Adeboye did not come to a waste.
At all.
Not come to a waste.
And then there is this part where they were talking about the call, accepting it, and Mommy Folu made a statement. She said, "We made this vow," and once again, you cannot overemphasize the importance of your partner on this journey. It was the way she accepted it. It's not. The call of God is a duty.
It made it a lot easier for Adeboye.
Yeah, even though it's a personal call, the work has to come from both sides, because I imagine that there were hours of him praying, hours of him fasting, of him not being present, but she was ready. She knew that was what. And then I think what I would like to close with on my end, you still have the feel of that, is I took note of it. I said, so man of God, child of God, God will never lead you astray. Because when they came to that end where they said, Pastor Enoch Adeboye, and then he stood up, and the sea of people, the crowd of people, God will not lead you astray. When he was to go to the one-room apartment in Mushin with his children, it might have looked little. But you see, if God is the captain of this ship, it cannot sink. It will get to where He wants it to get to. And then the word that Pakindayame left for him, he said, when you feel stressed, when you feel discouraged, he said, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And you see, one thing I feel like a lot of Christians will focus on in that verse is that it's not like Christ does it for you. He strengthens you. He gives you what you need to do all things, because it's like most people just feel like, if God wants me to do this, He should find a way to sort it. No, He's not going to find a way to sort it out. He's going to strengthen you to sort it out. He's going to strengthen your mind. He's going to strengthen your heart. He's going to strengthen the people around you to hold you up. But then at the end of the day, it will be done because God's hand is in it. So.
So at the end of it all, we saw of course, kudos to J. Mikey.
The music,
back to back from
God.
the train, Abattoir,
The
amazing.
music in this movie came in at the right time every time. At the right time every time.
Arise, arise, and he was saying it in Yoruba the day. And I think what struck me at that particular point was we found a man who had prophecy, written all over him. He had a future written all over him. He had generations. He had a sea of believers waiting on his rising. And we found a man actually rising up to obedience, actually rising up to submission.
Child of God.
And actually, I think that song says it all.
Stand up.
Yeah.
It's time. It's actually time to stand up, to take every one of the mountains of the media, the mountains of the church, the mountains of the family. It's time for everybody to stand up, because all we have seen in these 2 hours is the life of one man, and then there is you, and then there is him, and then there is me. There's so many lives that will be watched in heaven, that will be reviewed in heaven. And then I just hope that your life is a movie you want the angels to watch with you in heaven. A movie you are proud of. A movie that God is proud to say, oh, I produced that. Like, my hand is in that.
Yeah, so believer, I think it's time to rise up.
Stand up.
Rise up. Generations, creations are waiting, a manifestation. It's time for us to actually rise up. We are the light.
And walk with God.
It's time for us to arise. I think it was amazing. So, yeah.
Yes,
Victoria,
the review was long, but...
Victoria, yeah. So, I think we personally learned a whole lot from it.
Yes.
The hundreds, the thousands, the millions of people who eventually get to watch this movie in those channels which we listed would learn a whole lot of it. So beyond just the movie,
Adeboye also watched it 3 times himself, I heard. So yeah, it's definitely one worth watching. And I'd like to mention that the lessons to be learned are, we've not even scratched the surface. It's I feel like that movie holds a personal message for everybody. So you should see it, and if you have, maybe see it again. There's some things you don't see the first time.
Yeah.
So you should. So thank you,
Victoria. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Donna.
And to our viewers, audience worldwide, thank you very much for listening to this amazing movie review from Gospel Funnel TV. I'm sure you have loads of movies that you want us to actually review, lots of gospel movies. If you're a producer, if you're a viewer, you want us to do a review on movie, just make sure you place it in the comments channel. Any other thing you would like us to just review and say something about, we await your comments in the chat box. Thank you. Bye. See you next time. Bye.
Also, don't forget to like, to comment, to subscribe, and turn on your notifications so that when we review another movie or when we put out other content, you would be one of the first to know. And of course, you'll be blessed. I'm sure you'll be blessed. Yes, so thank you.
Until next time. Bye-bye.
See you.